Thank you all for checking out Crime Culture. Today's story is one about a violent murder with possible ties to the occult that took place in the Stanford Memorial Church in the early morning hours of October 13, 1974. This case would go unsolved for over 40 years until advancements in DNA technology allowed investigators to track down the killer. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the morbid and mysterious, go ahead and high-five that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. It truly helps my channel grow and allows me to keep bringing you haunting stories just like the one I am promising you today. All right, turn down the lights, settle in, and prepare yourself as we dive into today's story. It's the early hours of a chilly October morning in 1974 at Stanford University, a place renowned for its sprawling campus, world-class scholars, and a sense of safety that cloaks its grounds. But deep inside the walls of the Stanford Memorial Church, a place of peace and reverence, something unthinkable has just been uncovered. One of Stanford College's security guards, a man in his late 20s named Stephen Crawford, goes about his routine, walking the halls and grounds of this massive campus, confirming building doors are secure while completing his duties for that early morning shift. As he approaches the Stanford Memorial Church, a beautifully crafted sandstone church constructed in 1903 with hand-painted images depicting biblical scenes on the exterior, around 5:45 a.m., he would walk up to the steps to confirm the doors are locked. But to his surprise, they weren't. As he went to jiggle the handle of these historic doors, they would swing open just slightly. This came as a shock to Stephen, who clearly recalled locking the doors just 6 hours earlier around midnight, and further confirming they were locked on his second sweep of the property around 2 a.m. Bewildered and now on edge, he decided to go inside to investigate. As he swings open the large wooden entry doors, they creak with age as he steps inside. He works his way forward, checking pew after pew, and once he arrives at the front of the church, he spots it. There, near the altar, lies the lifeless body of 19-year-old Arlis Perry. Stephen, recoiling in fear and confusion, was horrified and called police. Once police arrived, they would discover Arlis's lifeless body lying there naked from the waist down, showing signs of being sexually assaulted before being brutally murdered with an ice pick, in what seemed to be a personal display of hatred and intense emotion. Suddenly, the perceived safety of this campus, a sanctuary for thousands, is shattered. Today, we dive deep into this case, a case that would go unsolved for over 40 years until advancements in DNA technology would finally bring this case to a close in 2018. A case that haunted Stanford for decades, the murder of Arlis Perry. Before this fateful night in 1974, there was Arlis, a young woman from Bismarck, North Dakota, raised with Midwestern values, faith, family, and kindness. Arlis was a devout Christian, the kind of person who found comfort in prayer and the church's embrace. In 1973, she married Bruce Perry, her high school sweetheart and current sophomore pre-med student at Stanford. Together, they moved to California in August 1974, just 6 weeks before her murder, eager to start their life and build a future on this prestigious campus. Arlis was known for her bright smile and gentle spirit, a woman who loved music, who dreamed of a simple, happy life. The Stanford community saw her as a symbol of innocence and hope, a reminder of the bright young minds shaping the world's future. Yet, beneath the surface of this ideal life, something was quietly unraveling. October 12th, 1974, a night like any other. The autumn air held a crisp chill, leaves rustling along the sidewalks. Bruce and Arlis had just shared dinner in their modest apartment nearby, but something was off. Friends would later describe a brief argument between Bruce and Arlis. Nothing violent, just tense words exchanged. After this disagreement, Arlis said she needed some fresh air, a moment alone to clear her head. She had told her husband she was going to take a walk to the Stanford Memorial Church to pray. Her footsteps echoed softly on the campus paths as she walked towards the church, a place she often visited to pray and reflect. Few saw her that night, but one or two distant witnesses recalled seeing a young woman near the church just before midnight, alone, pensive, unaware of what lay ahead. When Arlis didn't return by 3:30 a.m., her husband, Bruce, would call police. The police would respond by driving over to the church shortly after speaking with Bruce, but after confirming the doors of the church were locked, there wasn't much else for them to do, and they left, unaware of the horrors that lay hidden inside. The church, a Gothic masterpiece bathed in shadow and candlelight during the day, now held a sinister secret. Inside, Arlis lay sprawled near the altar. Her skull had been struck, the wound brutal and unmistakable, a horrific and seemingly personal attack. But what made investigators really stop and think about the motive behind Arlis's killing was the way her body was positioned. Her body appeared to be staged in a very bizarre way, large church candles being staged on and around her. Symbols that seemed ritualistic, a sense that this was more than a simple murder. For those first responders and investigators, this wasn't just a crime, it was a message that would ignite rumors for years to come. In any murder case, those closest to the victim become the first suspects. And this case was no different. Bruce Perry, Arlis's husband, would go on to be investigated, but was cooperative with the police. He passed multiple lie detector tests and had an alibi that placed him away from the scene at the critical time. At face value, Bruce seemed innocent given his cooperation, but police couldn't help but to be suspicious after hearing Bruce had waited over 3 hours in the middle of the night to contact anyone regarding his wife not returning home after their argument. As we recall, it was close to midnight when she had stormed out, and waiting until 3:30 a.m. to contact anyone made it seem like he could have possibly been covering up something or stalling for someone, but they didn't know what or who. Was it possible that behind the facade of a happy marriage there lurked a darker truth? Despite the suspicions, the police would eventually rule Bruce out as the killer. But the question remained, did he know more than he let on? The few witnesses in this case reported seeing a man near the church the night of the murder. Descriptions were vague. Mid-20s, dark hair, wearing a jacket. He vanished into the shadows before anyone could confront him or get a better glimpse. Sketches were created, but no one came forward to identify the man. Was he a drifter, someone with ties to the occult, a stranger with a vendetta, or was it Bruce himself? Leads dried up. The mystery man became a ghost in the case files, a chilling reminder that the killer might have walked freely on campus, unseen and untouched. No more tips would come in until an infamous serial killer would send investigators a package outlining exactly what he thought had happened to Arlis. The 1970s were a time of rising fears about cults and satanic rituals. The scene inside the church fed the growing panic. Media outlets speculated, was this the work of a satanic cult, a ritual sacrifice? Students whispered about secret gatherings in the dead of night. Rumors circulated about the existence of a cult on the Stanford campus, and the purpose of Arlis moving there was to try to convert those individuals to Christianity. This theory seemed to be solidified after the 1970s New York City serial killer, the son of Sam, formerly known as David Berkowitz, would mail investigators a package outlining what he believed had happened to Arlis. In this package, Berkowitz would include a book on dark magic, a book in which was written Arlis Perry, hunted, stalked, and slain, followed to California, hinting at the possibility of Arlis's death being connected to the occult. Police would go on to investigate this claim and possible connections to cult activity, but no concrete evidence ever emerged. The theory lingered like a specter, casting long shadows over the case and clouding the investigation. Years passed, DNA technology was still decades away. The case grew cold, files gathering dust, but Stanford never forgot Arlis and the impact her murder had on the community. Students shared stories of hearing footsteps near the church at night, of seeing flickering candles in forbidden places. For some, the murder became campus lore, a haunting reminder of the illusion of perceived safety. Then, in 2018, the case took a remarkable turn. Cold case investigators revisited the evidence, now with modern technology and advancements in forensic testing. Modern DNA testing, combined with genetic genealogy, would crack this case wide open, leading to the killer finally being identified. Arlis's killer, a man who hid in the shadows for over 40 years, would hide no longer. This man's name, Stephen Crawford. The same Stephen Crawford who was the campus security guard and who had discovered Arlis's body 44 years earlier. A man trusted by the university, responsible for keeping students and staff safe, had betrayed his role and the people of Stanford, walking among students and faculty, hiding a dark secret for more than 4 decades. On June 28, 2018, police would arrive at Stephen's apartment on Camden Avenue in San Jose, California. As police assembled outside, they would beat on his front door. Crawford, who was inside of his apartment, would take his own life before police could get inside and apprehend him. One final act of defiance that displayed his refusal to take responsibility for the crime he had committed so many years prior. This abrupt ending to a 44-year-long mystery left so many questions unanswered. Though, we can speculate why a seemingly respectable guy who served the Stanford community for years would commit such a violent act. It is believed that Crawford committed this heinous act out of anger and resentment towards the university. Crawford, who was an Air Force veteran, had started his work at the Stanford Department of Public Safety in 1971, but was later moved to a position as a security guard after a new police chief restructured the department. According to those who knew Crawford, he saw this change as a demotion and would often complain about his new role. It is believed this change led him to become defiant and bitter towards the university. After this perceived demotion, he would even begin stealing things around the campus. This, though, is just a theory. The true reason behind this horrible crime will never be known. Arlis Perry's story is a painful chapter in Stanford's history, a reminder that evil can lurk where we feel safest, shattering illusions of safety within some of the world's most renowned institutions. But her memory endures, not just in the crime files, but in the hearts of her remaining family and friends. Thank you all for watching. Be sure to comment your thoughts on this twisted cold case. And if you're a fan of the morbid and mysterious, be sure to subscribe to Crime Culture, where I will be posting a new haunting true story every week. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe, and turn on all post notifications. Until next week, stay safe and stay curious.